Springfield Raps there, which just heard their commercial, is also the designer of the KSGF studio and sponsor of the video feed, which you can watch on Facebook. That's 1041 Nick Reed. Also, we've got the YouTube channel. And a good Tuesday morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. Mostly sunny, slight chance of rain, a high today of 64. Biden announcing that he isn't finished with what he's doing to America yet, so he wants another 4 years, evidently, to finish us off, though he's done a pretty good job of managing, directing, facilitating this massive decline in national security, the economy, our border, fentanyl issues, you name it. I worry a great deal, and we should all worry when this guy talks about success. Look at their version of success. They tell us that their energy policies have been a success. Paying a massive amount more at the pump to fill up, and then, of course, that trickles down. Every time you see a truck delivering food, FedEx package, and whatever it is, I mean, everything gets delivered to that energy, so that cost gets passed along. That's a success. We've been told that they have secured the border. Better tell that to the 3,000 plus marching towards the U.S. border as we speak. Just another wave of individuals that will be spread amongst our country. The Democrats label that as a total, complete success. Afghanistan not only was a success, but it was the single greatest military exercise our country has ever seen. It was a tremendous success. According to Biden in that report that came out just a couple of weeks ago, detailing what I don't know, you and I, just the ignorant masses, see as a recognition that it was a total debacle. It was explained to us. No, it wasn't. It was incredible. There was no chaos at all, we were told. It was a brilliant success. Biden has succeeded in bringing us all together. The divisions are gone. He wants 4 more years of that sort of success on our country. Can we afford it? Can we survive it? The 2 quotes that I believe Biden has proven to be the best summaries of Biden came from people that were supporters of his. 1, Barack Obama. Never underestimate Joe's ability to F things up, end quote. Secretary of Defense during the Obama years, Gates. Joe Biden, when it comes to foreign policy, is wrong every time. These are people that like the guy. Like him. We'd learn through operations of tracking down terrorists the writings of bin Laden. His plan to assassinate then President Obama wasn't simply to show the United States that Al-Qaeda could take out a president, but it was for the purpose of making Joe Biden president of the United States. Because according to bin Laden, that he calculated would do what they were not able to do on 9/11 and bring our country to its knees. That was bin Laden's evaluation. If he were alive today to see that America did to itself what he felt would be more devastating than 9/11, you know, there was the 93 World Trade Center bombing, and that was an attempt to bring the United States to its knees, the idea being that the World Trade Centers would come down and the economic collapse didn't work, so they thought we're going to have another crack at it, 9/11, 2001. And while they were successful in hitting a number of their targets, they weren't successful in bringing the United States to its knees. So, Plan C was to make Biden president of the United States. I'm not making this up. This isn't a secret. At the time these writings were released by our government, the writings of bin Laden, there were a number of stories, just brief little stories in papers like the Washington Post and otherwise. I'm sure one of the reasons that they actually printed the stories was because that stuff came out when Biden was not in any way, shape, or form expected to be president of the United States. I mean, that was done and over with, had been written off. Remember Hillary Clinton, the torch was being passed to her, and there was all this rigmarole about how upset Biden was because he wasn't going to get the support of the Obama administration. And so at that point, you can we can write stories on bin Laden's Plan C to take down the United States. 93 World Trade Center bombing didn't do it. 9/11 didn't do it. Plan C, make Biden president of the United States. Bin Laden didn't even have to be successful. We did it to ourselves. I know many of you listening right now understand and comprehend the implications of all of this. But I do wonder, for our friends who support Biden, how do you reconcile that? How do you rationalize that Obama himself recognized Biden as an F-up? An ally of Biden's, Gates, said he's wrong about everything. Bin Laden felt that that was the final way to bring the United States to its knees. How do you reconcile that? Do you just ignore it? You just tell yourself Obama was wrong, Gates was wrong, Bin Laden was wrong. Everybody's wrong about Joe. He's doing a wonderful job. All three of those individuals, and talk about strange bedfellows, former president of the United States who chose Biden as his running mate. By the way, we can thank Obama for Biden because Biden would not be president if he had not been vice president. But the strange bedfellows all dovetailing one another in their recognition of what a disaster Joe Biden is, a former president of the United States, former Secretary of Defense, and former number one terrorist in the world, whose goal was to bring down the United States. See, these are the kind of panel discussions I'd love to see universities actually have. Instead of sitting around talking about how awful Donald Trump is, bring these things up. Talk these things out. All right, here's a subject matter. Now, let's just discuss for about half an hour or so, see where it goes. Jason Rima with the latest news update. First alert forecast, mostly sunny. Slight chance of rain today, a high of 64. Slight chance of rain tonight, 45. Mostly cloudy tomorrow with a slight chance of rain again, 62. And rain on Thursday, 59. In typical dictatorial fashion, with Biden's announcement that he's not finished with America yet and announcing he is going to run for re-election, he did the typical dictatorial thing, and that is claim he's a great unifier while demonizing all of the citizens that do not support him. And we have become accustomed to this. In fact, he opens with footage in his video because he is, as we have all seen on full display, incapable of doing things in a live manner that might involve questions. It highlights his cognitive issues. And the video opens with footage of the January 6th U.S. Capitol, and he talks about how, we need him to continue to unify us. He then goes on to call Republicans extremists, saying in response, extremists have intensified attacks on basic fundamental freedoms and rights. For example, they want to take away a woman's right to make a decision about her own body. I'm not aware of anything along those lines. Now, if he's talking about abortion, that's not the woman's body. This is very basic science. It's pretty easy stuff. In fact, when many of us were small children, we'd learn, we have 10 fingers, we have 10 toes, all of the things that make us unique as a human being. That's what an unborn child has because it is not the mother's body. It is a separate body. It's a separate human. Separate heart, separate brain, separate fingers, separate toes. This is why when the baby feels pain, the mother does not. Isn't that an interesting concept? This is also why whenever a baby is ripped out of the mother's wombs and has its arms and legs ripped off and its brain sucked out, the mother does not feel that. Because it's not the mother's body. It is a separate human being. This is an argument, though, that the Democrat Party has utilized before when it came to slavery, claiming that it's their property. You can't tell me what to do with my property. That's my property. And then there were those of us that were called extremists who would say, when I say those of us, those with the understanding, the belief that all human beings are human beings that are equal and should be treated as such, that just because you call it property doesn't mean it is. That's a human being. You can call it property all you want. You can show all the paperwork you want saying that you own that property, but that's a human being. Calling it property. Democrats have always been very good about utilizing language in order to manipulate the truth. When it comes to children, they say, no, that's my body. No. In fact, it's pretty obvious it's not. You can say it all you want. You can say it over and over again. You can come up with cute little slogans like, my body, my choice. Not your body. You don't have 20 fingers, do you? When you're pregnant, do you have 20 toes? Do you have 4 legs when you're pregnant? Do you have 4 sets of eyes? Do you have 2 stomachs? Do you have 2 brains when you're pregnant? No, you don't. It's the same battle that humanitarians fought in this country over slavery. Slave owners said, oh no, that's property. That's not a person, that's property. You can call it what you want. And that almost righteous anger that someone would dare tell them that's not your property, that's another human being, is the same righteous anger that we see when it comes to the issue of abortion and this belief that, no, that's not, it's my body. Have you ever known? Let's also look at it this way. If it's your body just as much as your arm or your leg, why don't we ever see people who promote that perspective ever just chop off an arm or a leg? Why not? I mean, it's no big deal. Would your life not continue as normal? No, it would not. And again, because that's actually your body that you would be mutilating. So Biden's extreme position, that's the extreme position that a human being is just not that. So there are no examples that can be provided of Republicans wanting to take away a woman's right to make decisions about her body. He went on to falsely claim, the sacred right to vote and all this same total BS. You notice no accomplishments are listed here. Nothing about how your life is better than before he became president of the United States. We're not hearing about energy independence. We're not hearing about a secure border. We're not talking about how we really tackled the fentanyl issue in this country and brought those numbers way down. Not talking about how cities are now safer under his direction and how Democrats from his party have followed his lead to make our cities so much safer than they were 2, 3, 4 years ago. How there's now this massive surplus of baby formula. Still having shortages in that area compared to the way that it was prior. Not talking about how your quality of life is better than it was 4 years ago, how your dollar goes further than it did 3 or 4 years ago. None of that. Just telling you how horrible and awful the other people are. And even at that, they're lies. He went on to claim that it's the extremist Republicans trying to silence the voice of the people. Oh, really? So it's the left-wingers who are afraid to speak out. It's the left-wingers who are afraid to storm into capitals like Tennessee and yesterday Montana. Riot police had to be called in because, and it's the encouragement by the Democrat Party, is it a coincidence that the day Biden has the Tennessee Three lawmakers who led a storming of the Capitol in Tennessee and called for violence, saying no plan, no peace, that same day riot police had to be called into the state house in Montana because of rioters? I'm sure there's no connection whatsoever. No. That isn't in any way, shape, or form. The immoral position of Democrats, all in the same news cycle, and then you have Ocasio-Cortez and others claiming that Tucker Carlson clearly is calling and encouraging violence. You really, genuinely, one struggles to recognize whether someone like Ocasio-Cortez is really that craven, depraved, and evil, or is she really that stupid? And sadly, she's not an exception to the rule for the Democrat Party. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Well, it's that time of the morning where I tell you about my friends over at Beatles Property Maintenance. Now, first things first, Beatles is spelled Beadles, and they do a variety of home repairs and maintenance. In fact, one of the things that they do is they help with mold. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because we are kind of in that peak season where mold and mildew kind of pops up. You know, we get a lot of rain, it's springtime, it happens. So if you have noticed some mold and some mildew, highly recommend that you call my friends over at Beatles. They are certified to deal with it, so you don't have to, and you can rest a little bit easier knowing that it is taken care of by the best professionals in the industry. And of course, for all of your other home repairs and maintenance needs, highly recommend Beatles Property Maintenance as well. You can find all of the contact information for Bruce and the Beatles Property Maintenance team under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Just came across this article. I swear every day Gynosexual, what it means and how to tell if it describes you. So here's a new one.
Okay.
One such orientation. So it opens up, the continued quest for understanding sexuality. One such orientation that is not commonly discussed. This is the first time I'm reading this. I mean, I just see all this pop up. Is gynosexuality. It almost sounds like a dinosaur term.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah. Derived from the Greek word gyneika, meaning woman, the prefix gyno implies that a gynosexual, or maybe it's gynosexual. I don't know. Gyno, because it's spelled like gynecologist, so we'll say gyno.
That's kind of what it sounds like.
Gynosexual is attracted to anyone who identifies as a female, is feminine looking, or exhibits feminine characteristics. While a relatively new concept, which of course all of this crap is, it is important to understand and acknowledge this orientation as a valid expression of human sexuality. This article will break down what gynosexuality means, and you will soon be able to tell whether it describes you. I like how now they have to tell you. They're like, you may not even know that this is you. How are you authentically something if someone else has to tell you that's what you are? All of this stuff, it boils down to, it's attention. See, let's just be honest. It's center of attention stuff. All of this is a need to be center of attention. Look at me, me, me. And it is a label that allows people to demand attention to them that other people don't require. So somebody sees me and they're like, oh, that's a guy. I don't need to tell you my pronouns because we live in the world of reality, and so I know you look at me and you just know, okay? But then there are those that they just desperately need attention. Desperately. It's filling a void, which is a whole nother level to it, but ultimately that's what it's about, seeking attention. And so if you have specific pronouns and a specific label, which ironically generally come from people who claim that they don't like labels, then they get to demand your attention. You need to call me this. Hey, look at me over here. I'm different. Here's my pronoun. And it makes them feel special. It is portrayed by those individuals as this is who I am. But I find that oftentimes they don't even know. They have to be told who they are. Are you really authentically that thing if somebody makes it up and they're like, oh, by the way, this is you? Oh, that's me. That's me.
How do these people not just be exhausted all the time?
It's a need for attention. It really, you think about it, I don't know, prior to all of this and these gifts of attention-seeking personality traits that as a society we now just hand out like candy. Many of us knew somebody, perhaps as a child or even as an adult, that they always needed attention, right? And they were exhausting to be around because they were just always seeking it. It's just a look at me, always calling you up. They got this going on or that going on, and at some point you just want to pull your hat. You may love them. It's a family member or it's a friend that you genuinely care about, but their need for attention just becomes exhausting. And we're just multiplying that, and we're making it seem normal to need attention desperately. And here's what's so awful about it and exhausting. It's not only a need for attention, but the left has instilled in people the need for approval. This is the big, horrible joke that's been played on these individuals, that in order to give them a sense of satisfaction and contentment and happiness, they need other people's approval. Now, they may tell themselves, no, that's not what I'm seeking, but of course it is. How many times have we heard activists say, I won't rest until people accept who I am?
And that's such a sad way to live. It is
sad. It's a horribly sad way to live. It's so totally and completely exhausting. I mean, it exhausts me watching other people try to do it. Now, I'm pretty lucky. I don't know why I am the way I am, and I consider it a blessing that I don't have that curse. I don't have this curse where, let's say as a Christian, I desperately need people to approve and affirm my Christianity. I need a month. I need product placement. I need it to be promoted as special. I need parades. I don't need any of that stuff. I don't need you to agree with me. You want to think that I'm some sort of idiot that thinks Jesus is a magician, and you just laugh and think my beliefs are that I kind of feel actually bad for you because of my belief system, and I'm, very strong in that belief system that is the way, the truth, and the light, and the fact that not only other people don't see it, and I understand that because we're human beings, but mock that, it does make me feel a little bad. But it never even crosses my mind that my fulfillment is going to come from convincing somebody else that they have to agree with my beliefs. They have to celebrate my beliefs. What a devastating, almost drug, an addiction that it's addiction just as bad and damaging, I would argue, as many different drugs, because you're constantly needing that. You're constantly seeking it. And I believe also it's part of the reason that we have such a high level of depression, emotional issues, which I consider to be different than what we call mental issues. Emotional issues, mental issues, I consider to be different. But even suicides, when you convince people that they have to have the entire world support and celebrate them, that's what they're always, that is a total void, because you're never going to get that. You're never going to get that. And why would anyone want it? We'd all just be a bunch of robots. I think it's one of the single worst things that's done in our school systems. It's one of the single worst things these organizations do that claim that what they're actually doing is helping these individuals, is you are making them wholly dependent on other people's approval. When did anyone ever find emotional stability looking for approval from others? I do firmly believe also, I've kind of gotten a bit off track. We're going to talk about Tucker Carlson, and Don Lemon, which I think all of this is hysterical. The earth-shattering reaction to Tucker Carlson. Meanwhile, Don Lemon, everyone's like, oh, whatever. It's like, hey, guys, I got fired, guys. I do genuinely believe that good, caring, compassionate people believe that they are doing something good by trying to recruit people to agree with the lifestyle that they promote. I believe in their minds, they think the way that we're going to have this harmonious world where everyone is happy is if everyone agrees with this. Now, I reject that notion because I don't think that you can have you're not experiencing life if everyone agrees on everything. Everyone is just one cookie cutter, just copy of absolutely everyone else, and we all have the exact same beliefs, and we all or we all have the same rejection of certain ideas. So I don't believe that that's living life whatsoever. I like the fact that we live in a world where people have different beliefs and different ideas, and as long as we can agree that, oh, okay, well, that's your thing. Just like, I'm not a sports guy, but some people are. Okay, Spice, you do your thing, you watch sports all you want, and I'm going to do what I like to do. But there are those who think, particularly when it comes to, let's say, the transgender thing, that the utopian society in which everyone is wonderful is where absolutely everyone agrees, not just with transgenderism, but that kids should be learning it and going to drag shows and all this stuff, and then we'd all just be wonderfully happy. But what you're actually doing is defining happiness by everyone agreeing with you. By definition. No one finds happiness that way. No one finds fulfillment that way. It's like empty calories. You may think that you're giving yourself nourishment, but you're starving yourself. And you're making things worse. And I genuinely 100%, it's so, everything's so backwards, because what happens is our society portrays people who don't necessarily agree with the certain lifestyle, that they're the reason for the lack of happiness. No, you're doing it. You're doing it by convincing them that everyone has to agree with them, everyone has to support them, and if they don't, then that means they're evil and they're out to get them, and that they want to eradicate them, they want to destroy them. There's no happiness in that belief system. You're doing harm, you're not doing good, and you're harming the people that you think that you're helping. One of the most valuable lessons I learned, and I think many people of my and prior to my generation learned, is that not everybody's going to like you. Not everyone's going to like you. To me, that is such a common sense, fundamental understanding of human interaction and humanity that allows you to be an emotionally healthy person, recognizing, understanding, and accepting that. That idea, though, to so many Americans is, I think, incomprehensible. How can somebody not like me? Now, if they're part of a certain category, they get trained to believe, well, it's because you're LGBTQ plus, or because you're this, or you're because of that, and then you're a victim, and then they're all evil. And again, that doesn't bring happiness to anyone. If you just accept the idea, not everyone's going to like you. Not everyone thinks you're special. Not everyone thinks you're perfect. Not everyone thinks you're attractive. Not everyone thinks you're smart. Not everyone thinks you're talented. Not everyone thinks that you are wonderful because you do this or you do that. That's life. Get over it. You're not the center of the universe. You need to find happiness in yourself. And these organizations and these counselors at schools and these, different efforts where they, like Springfield School, they bring kids off campus to convince them that they're victims. That has got to stop. If you really, truly, genuinely care about the mental health of kids, we need to get away from this conditioning in which they need approval from everyone, and instead teaching them you don't need their approval. I mean, what a strong, powerful message that is. You don't need their approval. What do you care what he thinks? Oh, that guy over there doesn't like gays? So what? What do you care? What do you want his approval for? Do you think highly of that individual? Is there something about that person, individual, that you desperately need that person's attention? You need that person's approval? No, you don't. Forget about that individual. That's the message of strength and emotional health. Okay, now, we're going to take a break. I got veered off a little bit here, but this story about a whole new category, what was it called? Gynosexual, which... Sexuality, the left is turning sexuality into the IRS tax code at this point, where it has become so damn confusing. I mean, you could have 8 people that are all, quote, the same, yet they go through the gender code that the left is creating, and they all come out something different. Well, I found out I'm lunisexual, I'm unisexual, I'm pappysexual, I'm, it's whatever. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. I screwed up our break so badly. I got everything all screwed up and jacked up. So we're going to go to another commercial break here. We do have a Heroes Breakfast. I didn't even, we're off air, and Sarah's like, oh, we have a Heroes Breakfast. Oh.
Yeah, I forgot to remind you.
Well, I mean,
it's this Friday.
Yeah, I was thinking of this month has gone by so fast.
Tell me about it.
I don't know why. I was just, even though, because we have a Friday event, you and I do, and aside from Heroes Breakfast, and I know in my mind that's the 28th, because I could see the date, the 28th. I was like, my gosh, I can't believe that's already upon us. So we do have a Heroes Breakfast this Friday at Scramblers, a Friday Roadshow sponsored by Affordable Towing, and then Serenity Honors, Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, and Delta Roofing, all along with Scramblers buy breakfast for veterans on our Heroes Breakfast Fridays, which will be this Friday, Scramblers, from 6A to 9A. Coming up on, let's see what I do. I've got the info here. Talked about this Friday last Friday with Don Carricker and Congressman Burles, and Christian County Republican Central Committee presents Lincoln Days. This is Christian County, and there are going to be a number of notables there. We've got Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft, Attorney General Andrew Bailey, Mike Moon, whose State Senate district covers that area, the Missouri GOP Chair Nick Myers, the Missouri Rep Cody Smith, Budget Chair. I think he's from the Carthage area. Darren Chappell, of course. Rep Bob Titus, Jamie Gregg, Brad Hudson, Presiding Commissioner Lynn Morris, County Clerks Paula Brumfield, Shane Scholler, who's Greene County. He's running for Secretary of State. Isn't that what he? Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to MC the event, and there's a nice dinner and everything. It's $50 a person. Congressman Burles bought a table for 10. The table seats 10. And he said, hey, I want to just give away the table. So sometime this week, though we were just talking off air, I don't know exactly how we're going to do it yet. Going to give away 5 pair instead of 10 individual. Give away 5. So if you win, you can bring somebody with you. A lot of times, it's just more enjoyable to bring somebody you know, in case you don't know other people and you've not been to an event like this before, and so you feel a little intimidated, uncomfortable, and so you can bring somebody with you, and you'll be at the table with other KSGF listeners who won. So that will be coming up sometime. Like I said, we don't know how we're going to give these away at this point, but we will be giving those away. And a big thank you to Congressman Burleson, who, again, purchased all of those tickets for the purposes of giving away those seats. So some of you who maybe have never attended an event like this will do so and get you engaged, get you involved. It's a great opportunity, and some of these people are going to get up and they're going to, obviously say some words, but it's just a good opportunity to socialize with people that you may not otherwise. Oftentimes it's not uncommon for you to run into your state rep, or, of course, Fridays, well, we're at Scramblers. Darren Chappell's generally out there. Congressman Burleson is as well. But Jay Ashcroft, Andrew Bailey, some of these individuals, given their positions, you don't just have an opportunity to have conversations with them and be around them in a casual setting. And this is an opportunity to do that. So now, of course, tickets are available to anyone if you want to purchase them. I would just Google Christian County, Missouri, Lincoln Days to get the information on that. But otherwise, we will be giving away 5 pairs of tickets for the event. And it is Saturday from 2 p to 9 p. The dinner's at 6 p. This isn't the sort of thing where you have to, be there and sit in a seat at 2 p.m. And be there all the way through 9. You can, I imagine, you want to just come a bit before dinner, then you are able to do so. I think there's probably a lot of socializing and stuff in the early portion of it. That's the information on that. All right, we're going to get another traffic update here. We are going to talk about the Tucker Carlson thing coming up. It's really funny that, if you noticed, best I can tell so far, nobody's really said anything about why this has occurred, other than Fox News saying we're parting ways. This initially was reported as Tucker Carlson got fired from Fox News. We don't seem to know that that's the case. We don't know whether this was... other than the LA Times, they've got a story saying Rupert Murdoch had wanted him out, and I'll share that information with you. But we don't really know. The one thing that most observers in media that are not mainstream have noted is that Tucker Carlson's the one who's going to come out ahead in all of this. Fox News certainly is not. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. American Transmissions talk and text line 447 KSGF. We do have news in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. sometimes I just shake my head at the things we do. And they're so incidental at times, but the top of the hour, of course, you hear the it's a breaking news. And right now, breaking news, Fox News, President Biden launches his re-election campaign. I mean, what's breaking news? I don't know. To me, breaking news is something like, whoa, didn't see that coming. Like, well, this is just breaking. Oh, my gosh. Can you believe this? Did you hear about this? You didn't hear about this? Like a massive earthquake or a plane crash or, somebody gets assassinated, these sorts of things. Or the stock market crashes unexpectedly. But is there anything less breaking than the announcement that Biden has announced he's running for president? I mean, he's been saying are you going to announce running? I'm going to announce. We knew it was going to be today. We knew it was going to be this morning, yet it's still breaking news. Like, if that's breaking news, I wonder what isn't breaking news. How they decide these things. Is there one person who makes this decision? I mean, all the networks, of course, have their own little breaking news deal, but Fox News, for example, we got to run it up the flagpole, the breaking news flagpole, and see if this qualifies. And they take it to this guy or gal in this room, and they're in there by themselves, and you got 4 or 5 people outside the door pacing back and forth, waiting to find out whether or not they hit the 2 individuals on opposite sides of the room turn the keys at the same time, and then a third person hits the button, and that makes it official breaking news. Is that how it works? Or is it just whomever is sitting there like, yeah, sure, why not? Hit the breaking news button. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, all of your home buying, all of your home selling needs. I recommend you check out what people have to say about Emily Johnson. Now, I've used her. Sarah used her. Many of you have used her. Either to buy your home, sell your home. If you're thinking about selling your home, don't spend any money doing any sort of fixer-up or remodeling stuff without talking with her first, because some of those things may not be necessary. Some may even be counterproductive. Some of the things that you think are priority number 4 should be priority number 1. This is what she does. She is an expert at these things, okay? She's incredible at it. She has a tremendous track record. She knows this area, this market, unlike anyone. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, and she's a broker, an owner of House Theory Realty, for all of your home buying and selling needs. Cannot recommend her enough. You can find her under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. It's being said that the FBI is quietly never going to release the manifesto of the gal who attacked and killed a number of Christians in Nashville a few weeks ago. And I'm not sure that there's ever been an instance in which the government covered up a manifesto. I'm not aware of that. There have been manifestos printed in the past, and there's been discussion. What does it mean? And I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but particularly for a high-profile case, this seems to me to be the first instance in which the government is going to cover it up. And it really does make you wonder what's in it. I'm beginning to believe it's much more than not reinforcing their narrative. The instinct for many people is to say, well, it's because it doesn't, they can't pit it on Trump supporters. It's not a manifesto talking about illegal immigration. It's not a manifesto that's talking about, left-wing lunatics and how they're destroying the country. And since it doesn't reinforce their false narrative about who the real danger is in this country, that they're going to keep it covered up so the American people don't see it. But I'm beginning to wonder if it doesn't go further than that, and it's not actually very point by point going down the list of Democrat talking points. Are there quotes, perhaps? Maybe quotes from President Biden, quotes from Kamala Harris, quotes from other Democrats that are used as inspiration for the shooting? Are there beliefs about semi-fascists, right-wing extremists? Is there verbiage in there that is word for word the verbiage used by elected Democrats and people in the media, the sort of thing that it is a clear connection? Because there have been manifestos and, of course, the release and circulation of Facebook postings in the past that you could tell they were a left-winger, right? This has become pretty commonplace with mass shooters. The media comes out and the Democrats come out and they act as if we all know that this is some right-winger, and then we learn through Facebook postings, well, clearly this person's not a right-winger, because they will, just pass postings, even if they aren't political. It's very clear that they aren't some Trump supporter. Maybe they hate Trump or whatever it may be. So given that we have been allowed to see postings and writings of individuals that reveal they aren't right-wingers, but they are left-wingers, it makes you wonder, okay, so what is different about this that they want to cover it up? And that's what happens when you have a sort of police state situation where the government decides to keep certain things secret and hidden from the population, as you just are left trying to fill in the blanks and recognize, okay, here's what they have given us access to, but now they're not. So what is different about this time? And perhaps it is just a very clear and direct link between things that Biden has said or Attorney General Garland has said, or Kamala Harris or any of the Democrats have said, that they worry that this is going to look real, real bad, particularly as Joe Biden is announcing his reelection for the presidency. Now, we don't know that that's the case, but this is, again, part of the problem of having a secret police state sort of approach to a situation like this, where the government is keeping it hidden from the American people. It forces the American people to speculate, what's the motivation? What's going on? Jason Rima with the latest news update. First Alert forecast sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Mostly sunny with a slight chance of rain. High of 64 today. Slight chance of rain tonight, 45. Chance of rain tomorrow, 62. And rain on Thursday, high of 59. One of the text messages that you all sent in on the American Transmissions talk and text line saying that you're right. The breaking news will come when Biden comes in third to Kennedy and Marianne Williamson in the first primary. Can Biden be successful by declining to debate in the Democrat primaries? We're going to talk about this coming up because I mean, Democrats have gotten so unapologetic about rigging elections. I think it's safe for me to talk about that without being an insurrectionist because it's their primary. They changed this reference to Biden coming in third, and he did not. Won Iowa in the Democrat primaries last time around? Pete Buttigieg. I don't recall who won New Hampshire, but South Carolina was what is upon reflection. That's how Biden won. You got James Clyburn. He came out and he told black people you need to get out and vote for Biden. And Biden, of course, said you ain't black if you don't vote for me. And so he wins South Carolina, and then that allowed the media to go, oh, this is it. It's done and over with. So they've changed the lineup so South Carolina's first. In addition to that, apparently they've let the other candidates, RFK Jr. and Marianne Williamson, know there aren't going to be any debates. You will not be given the opportunity to give your pitch to the Democrat voters. Why even have a primary? I mean, really, what a waste of time and money. A total and complete waste of time and money to go through this charade when it's clear the entire thing, they've changed the calendar so that Biden can start winning early. They aren't going to allow the other candidates to have a debate stage with Biden. Why even do none of you elected Democrats, even you locals in the area, does this not bother you at all? Does it not bother you for your voters that you are supposed to represent, that you're going through, that you're going to spend all of this taxpayer dollars on these primaries, on the caucuses, and all of this stuff, and it's all just total make-believe crap? Just cancel it and anoint Biden already. Incidentally, he did say Kamala is going to be his running mate, though. The question was asked earlier, can he drop her at any time? And I do believe up and to the point that the actual nomination takes place. I mean, that's what the convention is. That's where officially the votes, the ballots get cast and the nominee is chosen. So there's plenty of time to make that decision. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. That's so nice.
Thank you. Well, we've got tons of rain in the forecast later this week, and maybe you've noticed, hey, it is probably time for me to have somebody come out and take a look at my roof. Maybe you've noticed some yellowing on your ceiling. Maybe you've had some shingles blow off from all of the recent storms that we have had blow through the Ozarks. Or maybe you've just noticed every time it rains, you've got a light leak happening inside your home, and that's not supposed to happen. Well, if that is the case, I want to recommend my friends over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, Josh and the Pyramid Roofing team, they are top-notch individuals. One of my favorite things that I love to mention about the Pyramid team is that they will not try to upsell you, and they will be upfront and honest with you. They don't sugarcoat things. If you do need a new roof, they'll let you know, but if you are in a situation where you need just a simple roof repair, they will make sure to get that covered for you, so you don't have to worry about your roof every time it rains. Whatever your roofing situation is, highly recommend my friends over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, if you do need to give them a call, highly recommend that you give them a call today. Tell them I said hello. You can find all of the contact information for Josh and the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
A point of great aggravation and annoyance for me is when people jump to conclusions and promote their conclusion as an informed one. There is a lot of that going on regarding Tucker Carlson. There is a difference between sitting around and speculating and saying, well, it could be this, it could be that, versus being uninformed yet putting out an assessment as if you are informed. There is a lot of that going on regarding Tucker Carlson. And immediately, people began portraying the situation as he was fired, and he was fired as a result of the Dominion lawsuit settlement. Now, my first thought upon hearing about 90% of the opinions being that, that position there was maybe, but how do we know? I mean, what are we basing this off of? What we did know is that Fox News released a statement that was pretty benign, saying we parted ways. Didn't say he was fired, but we parted ways, and we thank him. He's awesome. His last show was on Friday. The presentation that we parted ways suggests that it was a mutual decision, though perhaps it wasn't. The decision apparently for him not to be on Monday is unusual for a parting of ways that is amicable. Is generally, particularly if it's your number one guy, your top-rated draw, you're going to promote that the end of the show is coming. I mean, good Lord, how long was Ellen's, goodbye? Like a year? But to not even have him on for one final farewell show, and apparently, according to reports, his staff was planning. They had booked guests for Monday. Excuse me. So the decision was made, be it by him who said, no, forget it, I'm out of here, or them saying, no, you're out of here. We don't really know that information yet. Now, of course, that did not stop people, one, from, particularly on the left, from gleefully celebrating as if he had been fired. There are a number of reasons, particularly people in the media, should not be doing that. However, what we've learned is that, sadly, the majority of people in the media do not actually believe in a free press. Ocasio-Cortez, just a day before, though there's no connection, I'm sure, was talking about how the government needs to come down on him, and she cited a number of reasons that, once again, demonstrate she has no idea what she's talking about. But then she celebrated it. I mean, the fact that we live in a country where Democrat elected officials will openly celebrate a person in the media that they believe they had a hand in getting rid of is such the antithesis of everything that is freedom of the press. Again, there is no evidence that it was because of any sort of government pressure, but I'm reflecting on the reaction of some Democrats in government and the fact that they are embracing the idea that they used their influence and their power in order to have a member of the media fired because of things that they were reporting on. That is I mean, everyone. There should be editorials in newspapers like the News Leader railing against that position. But of course, they're not actual journalists. They are propagandists for the Democrat Party, so they're not going to do that because I'm sure they see no problem in this whatsoever. They don't see it as a violation of freedom of the press. He doesn't count, see. To them, press is the marketing department for the Democrat Party and the Biden administration. We're going to take a break. The LA Times, they do, which I almost hate to even reference what it is that they claim may have been behind it because it's anonymous sources that had and it's the LA Times. But nonetheless, it is out there being reported, which means it's being talked about. So that next, Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. All right, coming up Friday, we do have our Heroes Breakfast. If you're a veteran, join us as we broadcast live from Scramblers 6A to 9A. You're going to get free breakfast as a veteran. That, thanks to Scramblers, Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, Serenity Honors, and Delta Roofing. Also this week, we're going to give you a chance to win tickets to the Christian County Lincoln Days. We talked about this earlier in the show. You will be a guest of Congressman Burleson. He has purchased a table, and the table seats 10, so we're going to give away 5 pair. We're still kind of deciding. I think we're going to do a combination of things, some text to win, some, hey, show up at this location, and first person will get a pair, and so forth. So we'll be informing you how we'll do that. So we're trying to do it in ways everyone will have an opportunity because some of you work in the morning, can't drive somewhere, and so forth. All right. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed. all of the characters. They're a great asset, great resource. Those of you listening around this time yesterday heard Alex call in and try as best as possible to explain, though it's always very confusing to me, the reports about this $40 fee that this new rule from the Biden administration, people who have a better credit score is going to pay in order to subsidize those who don't have as good of a credit score, and how while there is always generally some truth to that sort of thing, it's just one of many, 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 many layers of manipulation by the government when it comes to these things. And I listen to Alex Carricker. I don't fully get it, but I can tell he does. And that's why I recommend iwantagreathomeloan.com when it comes to your home loan needs. That's the stuff they know. They get it. It's sort of like Beautiful Mind. And I don't understand it. I know I can tell they do. And that's why I use them. And this may come as a newsflash to you. Not everyone in the industry of home loans do get all of that stuff. A lot of them don't understand it because it is so complex. But the characters are kind of nerds in that way, and they enjoy it, and they love helping, and they get it. So that's why when it comes to any of your home loan needs, I recommend them, their team. iwantagreathomeloan.com because you do. First Alert Forecast, sponsored by Navant. Employee benefits that work, mostly sunny with a slight chance of rain today, high of 64. Slight chance of rain tonight, 45. Slight chance of rain, 62 tomorrow. Rain on Thursday, 59. I'm interested to hear what Tucker Carlson has to say about all of this. My instinct is, why has he said nothing? But then I suspect that he probably has been fielding a tremendous number of phone calls. The one takeaway that many people who I believe are objective in recognizing this have, and that takeaway is Tucker Carlson's the winner in this thing. This is good for him. Tucker Carlson, Fox News needed Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson did not need Fox News. A lot of speculation as to what to do. A lot of people think he's going to run for office. I don't. If I were him, I would not. There is something, and frankly, I think that he would be much, much more valuable as a source of information that the establishment media is not providing. You know what I mean? To me, that's where his value is. What would we think just about January 6th? If it weren't for him, would we have been able to see all of those videos that showed the context of January 6th? The bigger picture instead of the very narrow, edited view that was presented by the anti-Trump people. We would not have. There were a number of revelations in the showing of those videos. And what, of course, is a perfect illustration of the gaslighting that goes on in this country, particularly with the establishment media, is they presented him as presenting it out of context when he was the one that was giving it context. More information is not less context. More information is providing context. And he was, I believe, totally unethically portrayed as downplaying January 6th. He did no such thing. And there were Republicans who accused him of this. In fact, the evening of the reporting, on the additional footage to provide context, he showed all of the same footage that has been shown by the January 6th committee and all the other media outlets, showed all of that. Then he showed more. How anyone believes more information is bad, more information is misleading, those people are liars. I believe if we're talking about the bigger picture of what is best for the country, it's that Tucker Carlson continued to be in a position where he can provide information to the American people that they otherwise will not get. not running for governor or U.S. senator. Also, financially speaking, it would be much, much more lucrative for him to continue to be a voice that provides information to the people about what's going on in the government. Now, if he were unethical, he could probably make a tremendous amount of money like so many people who get in Congress do. I don't believe he's one of those types, though. Some have speculated that, again, he may run for office. I don't know that that's in the cards. That he may start his own media empire. He certainly has the ability to do so in terms of the smarts, financially as well. There are a few networks that perhaps One America News, Newsmax, some already existing networks that could potentially be a good home for him, or he could start his own. Now, what does this say of Fox News? This is my assessment. My assessment is Fox News is not what it was intended to be and not what it started out to be. Fox News, in its infancy, was like Newsmax or OAN. It was the little train that could. It was the cable news network that the other networks scoffed at and thought, there's no way you're going to be able to, because they weren't part of the establishment and so forth. But then they became tremendous players. And what's really sad is what oftentimes occurs is when an entity, a company, or a person becomes very successful doing things a certain way, then they decide to change the way they're doing things, not realizing that that's why they became so successful. And the reason that Fox News became so successful is because Americans lost faith in establishment media. And there was this sense that if you want to get something that is a genuine, authentic approach to what's going on, then Fox News is the place to do it. And polling showed that in terms of trust amongst Americans when it came to the different news outlets. And it's been very profound, particularly with CNN, MSNBC, and these others in the Biden administration. I mean, they're just mouthpieces for the administration. And I think the Hunter laptop story really, for most Americans, solidified the fact that these legacy, these establishment media outlets are just the propaganda wings of the Democrat Party. And that's all they're do. They are there in order, in that particular case, to even help run a disinformation campaign for the purposes of altering the outcome of the election. I believe what has happened, Fox News has turned into sort of like a Mitt Romney, where Fox News is the alternative media outlet in name only. What would that be? Amino? Alternative media outlet in name Amino? Almost like WWE wrestling or frenemies of sorts, that their marketing position is, oh yeah, we're different. But when it really comes down to it, there are certain fundamental accepted beliefs that they are going to operate from. And one of those is Trump is a lunatic, his supporters are crazy, they're unhinged. There's an LA Times piece, and again, you just take it for what it is, and that claims that, according to sources that cannot be named because they don't have authority to speak, Rupert Murdoch ultimately was behind Tucker Carlson's exit because he was concerned about the host reporting on the January 6th Capitol riot. Now, I would hope that that's not the case. Because if that is the case, that is very bad news, not for Fox News, but for America. Because again, and to me, this is so simple as a person that tries to take an objective stance, how on earth anyone can claim that media providing more context and more information to any story is bad is beyond me. And the fact that we have a culture that universally, with the exception of Tucker Carlson on Fox News, because even Fox News wouldn't talk about it. There weren't stories on Fox News Radio, which we cover, about what was revealed in those videos. The Five didn't talk about it. It was clear. Everyone knew that they weren't supposed to talk about it. Think about that culture. That is not a free press. When you live in a country where it is just understood and everyone on the same page understands that there are certain things you should not talk about and you won't talk about because the people in government don't want you to. That is a horrific reflection of where we are in this country. And so if that is the reason that he was edged out, that is a horrifying reality about where we are in this country. And it really, if that is the case, demonstrates freedom of the press does not exist in this country any longer. It does not exist. There is one other people, and again, this to me is out of ignorance. They, it's because of the Dominion lawsuit, the Dominion lawsuit, the Dominion lawsuit. Tucker Carlson, more than, or at least as much as any of the other personalities on Fox News, at least on air, he was the loudest voice in pushing back against some of the claims being made by the Trump orbit regarding the election. And I think that many of these people have no idea what they're talking about. They just see the headlines and they know, well, there's a Dominion lawsuit that went on. Oh, Tucker Carlson's gone and he was involved and so forth. His capacity, at least on air, was the one calling them out. And what's her name? I always forget her name. She was early on kind of edged out by the Trump world as well in making a lot of the claims about Dominion. Tucker Carlson was saying, put up or shut up. You can't keep making these claims. I mean, he would say these things on the show. You are not providing evidence. You have to put up evidence if, in fact, there were a lot of Trump supporters that were very upset with him about it. So this conclusion that many people have jumped to, that it had something to do with the Dominion lawsuit, is not based in any reality. All that being said, this world makes no sense. So if I were to find out, even though Tucker Carlson was the voice on Fox News that was the most doubtful of those Dominion allegations, and that he still was forced out because of it, that wouldn't surprise me in this day and age. Women are men, men are women. Climate warming is climate cooling. This is that. It's just, this is the problem in living in an anti-intellectual world. the lost irony on so many of these folks in the media, and again, I think it is at this point an inability to take an intellectual approach. And you had MSNBC anchor Nicole Wallace on, and Claire McCaskill was on there. I love anytime they talk about Russia, because Claire McCaskill is the one who lied about her involvement and interactions with the Russian ambassador, I believe it was. Remember when Jeff Sessions, he recused himself from any sort of Russia stuff because he had talked to a Russian ambassador once, and Claire McCaskill went out and claimed, I'm a U.S. senator. I've never even talked. And it turned out she even went to a thing at his house or something, or he came to hers. I mean, she's just a total lying piece of crap. Which, of course, is why MSNBC has her on as a regular guest. And Nicole Wallace. So one of the things, if you watch Tucker Carlson, and I'll be honest, I'm not a regular watcher of Tucker Carlson. I never have been. I'm aware of much of the subject matter that he would cover on his show because of subsequent stories that would oftentimes come from it, because he was doing actual journalism and bringing things to light that nobody else was. When it came to covering Russia, I mean, this just seems so obvious to me what journalists should do. There were a lot of questions that he would ask. Instead of taking the position, the Biden administration says that we should just trust him and give as much of our tax dollars to Ukraine. This country that once upon a time Joe Biden and Democrats portrayed as so corrupt, he had to intervene and make sure that their top prosecutor got fired. All of a sudden are telling you that you should 100% trust their government without question with your tax dollars. And Tucker Carlson was one of some of the voices out there that said, well, maybe not. And you know, to what degree should we be involved in this? How much should we be involved at all? And I did not necessarily, in some of his positions I was aware of, always agree. But I also recognize that you don't come to potentially better and well-informed conclusions without talking about those things. And so Nicole Wallace, though, has taken the position that so many others has, that he was the American mouthpiece for Russian propaganda. What's ironic about this is that is the Russian approach to anyone who dissents. You're a mouthpiece of the enemy. So here Nicole Wallace, while accusing Tucker Carlson of being a mouthpiece for the Russian propaganda because he questioned our government, that is the exact approach that people in Russia, Putin and the establishment in Russia take, and the former Soviet Union, declaring anyone who questions the Kremlin, anyone who questions Putin, a mouthpiece of the enemy. And it's totally lost on these individuals because they're completely obtuse, that they are doing the exact thing they're accusing somebody of Tucker Carlson of doing. I'll do it in the next hour. I think I'll have time. Matt Taibbi, who wrote the Twitter file stuff, and he's actually a left-wing journalist, but you probably heard that you've got this Stacey Plaskett, a Democrat. She's a delegate from the Virgin Islands. She's threatening him with prison time because he mixed up some agencies while on MSNBC. He was on with Greta, she used to be on Fox News, Greta, whatever her name was. Anyway, she's on Newsmax now. And he noted that, and he evidently grew or went to college or something in the Soviet Union, and he's realized that in this country, the media has become as useless as it was in the Soviet Union, to where people quit buying newspapers they quit paying attention to the news because they knew there's nothing in there you can even believe. And how disheartening it is to him as a journalist to see that journalists have done that here in the United States, have made themselves no different than the press in the Soviet Union. Aller Building Company, Oller. They got a showroom floor in Ozark. Beautiful showroom floor, relatively new. And that is where you go, make the house a home. These are homes for folks that don't want to do any remodeling. Many of us, you buy a home and someone else has lived in it, and you go to work. You take out this wall, you change out the cabinets. Well, not everyone wants to do that. Some people just want it to be the way they want it to be, and that may be you. If so, Aller Building Company, these are the folks for you, Oller. You can, again, find them under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. It is almost heartbreaking to watch this country become what the left claims they fear. And that is a Putin-esque approach, a Soviet approach to dealing with dissent, to dealing with the media, and all the time, again, gaslighting by accusing their opposition of doing it. We got some audio on that, plus more coming up in the next hour. I'm Nick Reed. coming up, I'm going to play an audio exchange that involves Matt Taibbi. And Matt Taibbi, he's the individual that wrote a series of stories that it was actual journalism, again, brought to light information that the American public was not aware of about the government infiltrating social media sites like Twitter for the purposes of censoring and essentially creating a disinformation campaign by blocking actual information and discussion. And so, of course, he was hauled before Congress because Democrats evidently think this is the Soviet Union. And he's been threatened with prison time. Some of these Democrats are pretty ballsy. They do things even Putin hasn't done. I noted that was 2 weeks ago, one of Putin's political opposition, he was convicted of treason or something that the Russian government tried him for, and it was 5 years he was facing. He was either convicted or he was going to trial. The Democrats, just in New York alone, are going for 136 years for Trump. 136 years. Not for treason, but for a clerical issue. Putin, his government, his people, they're going after a political opposition just for 5 years, and they're like, that's under treason. Democrats here, it's like 136, and we still got Georgia to come. I mean, the Democrats put the Putin regime to shame when it comes to threatening, intimidating, and attempting to imprison political opposition. Oh, but you're not allowed to say that. Matt Taibbi, and he's not a conservative journalist. He's somebody left-wing. There's a documentary, a scene in a documentary that stands out when I see somebody that is a left-wing journalist come under attack by his own people, politically speaking. And it was a documentary about Venezuela and the dictatorship under Venezuela. And this was years and years ago. There was a journalist who was also left-wing in line with the government. And he noted that people think when you are the political opposition and you speak out against the power, that is the most dangerous position to be in. But he noted that's not, he learned as a journalist who was left-wing, that it's when people within the political establishment come out and call out corruption, that's the real trouble. It's when one of their own get out of line that they really rain down hailfire. And I suppose this would be an example of it, threatening a left-wing journalist with 5 years in prison because of something that he said on MSNBC. Again, where are the editorials from outfits like the Newsleader? Will Gannett not allow you to stand up for journalism? Will they not allow you to stand up for freedom of the press? Or are you just willing to sit by and allow journalists to be drug off, to be attacked, to be threatened with prison time because they attacked your dear leader? Because they reported on information that made your dear leader appear potentially corrupt. There's got to be some reason. You don't think it's newsworthy? Really? I do want to play an audio exchange with him, and it's a couple minutes long, but it's just such a sobering, dystopian view of where we are in this country and how pretty much, if not on life support, Freedom of the press is dead in this country. Doesn't exist. Jason Rima first with the latest news update. And the first alert forecast, mostly sunny. There's a slight chance of rain today, a high of 64. Slight chance of overnight rain, 45. Slight chance of rain tomorrow, 62. Thursday, rain, high of 59. Streaming online, video feed, sponsored by Springfield Wraps, Vinyl Wraps. They designed our studio. In fact, they can do pretty much, I think they can laminate about anything. They do an incredible job, and creatively speaking as well. They have their own department that can come up with designs for you. It's a lot easier than painting, can look a lot sharper, and frankly, I think it's a lot easier at Springfield Wraps. And our video stream, of course, we're on YouTube, and then on Facebook, that's 1041 Nick Reed in the Facebook world. Traffic update. I was watching, it was a commercial, and I don't even know what it was for, other than it was a DIY product for epoxy flooring and just the massive, tremendous benefits of having epoxy flooring and the looks, and all that is true. However, I am here to tell you that there's certain things that, as talented as you may be, you're not going to be able to do on your own as well as garage experts, talking about flooring specifically. The process itself, the machinery that they have, is very high level, expensive machinery that grinds down your flooring so that it is best prepared to take that epoxy flooring. I've not done the DIY. I've talked to people who have, and it's like some sort of acid stuff that's supposed to, like, I don't know, etch up your flooring or something. Nowhere close to the process you're going to get with garage experts. The product itself is not the over-the-shelf sort of product you're going to find. It is much higher quality. So if you have, or you see a commercial, or you see photos, or talk to someone who has had the epoxy flooring put down, trust me, you want to get in contact with garage experts, and they'll come do an estimate and talk to you about what all entails and the cost and so forth, and then you can be fully informed as to make the decision whether you kind of want to try to DIY it, go on the cheap, or do you want it to be long-lasting? Do you want it to be done right? Do you want it to be done top quality with garage experts? You can find them under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. Greta Van Susteren, who used to be on Fox News forever and ever and ever ago, and then she left, and she's with, I believe, Newsmax now. She interviewed Matt Taibbi, who is a journalist, and so this is all the background on this. It's not actually too terribly confusing, but he was called to testify because he dared, among other things, report on the fact that the government had infiltrated social media sites like Twitter in order to sort of guide the social media conversation, to censor free speech. And he did what journalists are supposed to do, and on behalf of the people revealed what was going on with the government, and in that case, the massive corporation of Twitter. So for that, he was called before Congress. And so, of course, in Washington, D.C., everything's letters: FBI, CIA, CIS, CISA. And so many of these, you and I have no idea what they even are. And evidently that there's the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency known as CISA, CISA. And he talked about that while he was testifying. Well, he was on MSNBC, and I guess he accidentally referred to it as CIS instead of CISA, which is a different organization. Based off of that, Democrat Stacey Plaskett, who's a delegate from the Virgin Islands in U.S. Congress, so she has a seat, she has a place, she gets to be on committees, she doesn't have a vote, sent him a letter telling him he could face 5 years in prison for perjury because of the mistake that he made on MSNBC. And he was interviewed by Greta Van Susteren on Newsmax, and here's that exchange.
Now, the man who received that threatening letter, independent journalist Matt Taibbi, joins me. Nice to have you back on the show, Matt. Tell me, what in the world does she say you did wrong? What did she say you lied about?
Well, basically, this is all over me getting an acronym wrong by one letter in one tweet. But actually, the error is on the part of the committee and MSNBC, which interviewed me about this. I did make an error in a tweet, but they're erroneously claiming that the Stanford's Election Integrity Partnership does not have a relationship with a Department of Homeland Security agency. They think that that's what that tweet meant, and they're wrong about that. It demonstrably does have a relationship with them. So they're threatening me with jail over an error, which is chilling and crazy.
You know, Matt, I admit I'm tired. I've traveled all weekend to South America. I've been on the road yesterday. It's a long day. It's Friday. But it is so unbelievably insane to me they get a letter on an acronym wrong, especially when you listen to what those 51 former Intel trading off their experience, what they wrote. You've got that. And you've got, I'm looking in front of me, is that former CIA Director Clapper was accused not formally of perjury at a committee hearing when he said the NSA does not collect any type of data on millions of Americans. That was in June 2013. I mean, all the insane, I can't think of anything more insane than go after you because you made a mistake on an acronym. It really, it's unthinkable to me.
The irony of this from my standpoint, Greta, is I started to drift away from what you might call mainstream journalism precisely over an issue like this. I remembered watching Adam Schiff's hearing about Russian active measures in March of 2017, and where he basically read into the congressional record his theories that were promoted by Christopher Steele. And I thought, wow, it must be true. It's prepared remarks by a member of Congress. But when I wrote to Schiff's office to ask if they had confirmed it, they said, we look forward to speaking to Mr. Steele to corroborate the story. No, they hadn't checked it at all. So after that standard, they want to put me in jail over something that's not even an error, which again, is unbelievable.
And not to harken back on those 51, that they still have security clearances. I mean, there's been actually what they did had potentially big consequences because it could have influenced someone. What you did, getting a letter wrong in an acronym, and all we are acronyms in this city, it really is close to being insane. It really is.
It's incredible. The 51 intelligence officers. There's a couple of things about that are remarkable. Number one, scan the pages of mainstream news coverage today, and you will not see anybody covering that story. That's the story about Michael Morrell admitting his role in that. The former acting CIA director. That's a massive story of national consequence, and it's just simply not in the news. It's much like the Twitter Files reports were completely ignored. So what kind of country are we living in now? I went to school. I'm old enough to have gone to college in the Soviet Union, and nobody read the newspapers because it was all lies and there was no real news in it. Well, we're starting to come to that same situation in America.
We only have 30 seconds left, but let's not forget that you got a little home visit from the IRS while you were testifying, too.
I did, and I was inclined to think, well, maybe that was a coincidence that happened on the day that I was testifying. But now I'm beginning to get paranoid. I mean, this is it is really chilling. I've got kids. I would laugh about this, but they're threatening me with prison over this ridiculousness. And what reporter is not going to worry going forward?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll dust off my bar license if that congressman comes by after you for a letter in an acronym in D.C. But anyway, Matt Taibbi, thank you very much. Thank you for joining me. I'm sorry it happened.
Now, let me tell you what concerns me aside from the context of this, the substance of it. I have heard the approach is that this is crazy, this is nuts. I hear a lot of people who are in my position, but national host. They note this as an example of how extreme the Democrat Party has become, but at the same time they dismiss it as, well, nothing's going to come of it because he didn't do anything wrong. We have got to wake up and recognize that does not matter any longer. I think that there are still some people who are, to some degree, aware of the shift in this country away from a free country, but don't really fully understand the reality of what that means. To dismiss a sitting member of Congress, though a rep of the Virgin Islands doesn't have a vote, threatening him with prison time because he got some letters mixed up in a tweet, and dismissing it as, wow, yeah, it's crazy and shows how extreme they are. He doesn't really have anything to worry about because he didn't do anything wrong. Do you not realize what's going on in this country? We have a presidential candidate, former president, facing 136 years in prison because of something that everyone acknowledges isn't even in the jurisdiction of the DA, even if it were, is outside the statute of limitations. It isn't even a crime, but that is happening. And let me tell you something else. This little false sense of security blanket people are wearing that Trump will not be put in prison, you got to wake up on that one too. Now, I'm not saying that he will be, but this belief that there's no way that'll happen, this idea that in government, people in power are not willing and able to throw somebody in prison for what they're threatening to throw Taibbi in prison for. There are people still in prison in Washington, D.C., who aren't even accused of vandalizing anything, simply walking into the Capitol without permission. It is naive for us to dismiss something like this as a situation in which, oh, he doesn't really have to worry about it because he didn't do anything wrong. My God, I remember I was watching, there was a documentary, I forget what it was on. It was an older documentary. It was from the 80s. And it was about Americans who had, during the 20s, moved to the Soviet Union because the Great Depression and the great socialist utopia that was the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union, for propaganda purposes, was really playing this up. I think they even got Ford to open up a factory there, and they had a baseball team and all of this propaganda in order to demonstrate to the world that socialism was better than capitalism. Well, as always, it goes with socialism and communism. Slowly but surely, things start going poorly for the citizens. And this documentary was interviewing kids who grew up with, in American parents, but in the Soviet Union because their parents felt that socialism was the answer. And it was really chilling to hear these. They were elderly at the time. Again, this was the 80s, but they were kids in the Soviet Union and talking about their parents and listening to their parents as they began to realize things were going wrong. And there was this consistent theme of these people that were interviewed, that the mom was always worried because so-and-so's husband disappeared. So-and-so's brother disappeared, an American. And with consistency, these people talked about how they would hear their dad say, "We don't have anything to worry about. I haven't done anything wrong." And those would be the last words they would hear. It is dangerous for us to assume that simply because we live in America, just because we haven't done anything wrong, they won't get us. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. A couple of things before we get a traffic update. We do have a Heroes Breakfast coming up Friday. That is at Scramblers. If you're a veteran, you're going to get free breakfast between 6 and 9 a.m. Friday at Scramblers as we broadcast live. That is sponsored by Serenity Honors, Scramblers, Delta Roofing, and Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, and Electrical. And all you got to do is come out. It's that easy. Also, beginning tomorrow, be sure to listen. We're going to announce how it is you can win tickets to the Christian County Lincoln Days, which is Saturday. Going to be a lot of people there. Great event. Congressman Burleson has purchased a table and asked us to fill it with KSGF listeners. So there will be, it's a table for 10. We're going to have 5 winners win a pair, and we'll announce tomorrow morning how it is. We're going to do it a couple of different ways. So that everyone has an opportunity as best as possible to win those. I'll be emceeing the event. Looks like it's going to be a great dinner, some drinks if you want, just kind of a nice socializing event that's coming up on Saturday. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed. First alert forecast. Slight chance of rain today, otherwise mostly sunny with a high of 64. Slight rain chance tonight, 45. 62 tomorrow with a slight chance of rain. Thursday rain, 59. I keep thinking I need to mention this because I imagine it is an obvious question that many of you have. For whatever reason, I don't know how to describe it. Maybe because I'm always thinking about it, I'm not thinking to mention it, which seems like the opposite of what would happen. But with all the talk, and there has been for some time, but now, Fox News and the departure of Dan Bongino, which a number of you have mentioned, of course, that happened very recently. Tucker Carlson now. And some of I believe that, and I tell you when I really noticed it was the fact that the radio, we've got Fox News, refused to report on some of the findings in the additionally released January 6th footage. And I had a conversation with the contact person. I was like, "Why?" And they just didn't think it was newsworthy, which is, to me, very, very poor judgment when it comes to, it's not even a bias thing. It's like, are you out of your mind? So why do we continue to carry them? And a lot of people instinctually say, well, what about like Newsmax or the problem is many of these outlets, they don't have a radio. version of their news. One American News does not, at least last I checked, have a radio version of their news. Newsmax does not have a radio version of their news. Epoch Times does not have a radio version of their news. And so there's great limitation there as to what's available to provide. And up until now, it's really been the best alternative, though I do believe they are becoming more comfortable presenting themselves as being just like the other networks. And I think that's what they're essentially trying to merge. That's what some of this potentially could be, shedding away those that essentially this is what's happening. I've noticed the news outlets that do the actual journalistic stuff. In other words, hey, here's something that didn't come from the government in a press release that they may not necessarily want you to know about, but it's going on. Those people are more and more ostracized from media for doing what it is people in media are supposed to do. This is how upside down it is. These media outlets essentially have become outlets. They just wait for press releases to come from their contacts, and then they regurgitate the press releases. The news comes from the government. And when you have somebody, be it a Tucker Carlson or some of these others, that actually investigate, they don't just re-edit a press release, but they investigate. And God forbid, discover something that the government doesn't necessarily want people to know, and God forbid, report on it. That is not something that appears to be welcome in the world of journalism in the United States 2023. In terms of the footprint, I don't know that there's anyone that has been more of a journalist for this country than Tucker Carlson, if you view journalism as I just laid out, and that is, here's somebody bringing me information that was not a press release from the government and may not necessarily be something the government wants us to know about. I don't know that there's anyone that was doing it as effectively as him, which seemingly that's, he's the type that they're shedding, they're getting rid of. And we just have different versions of different editing of press releases from these different news outlets. So all that being said, it isn't that there aren't potentially other national news feeds that would be better than what it is that we currently carry. It's just nothing really that is nothing at this point is an obvious pick that would be better. And so I want to mention that. I know it's a lot of inside stuff, frankly, that most people in radio certainly wouldn't talk about because for whatever reason, that's behind the scenes stuff. I don't think it needs to be by any stretch of the imagination. I think that you all knowing where it is that I'm coming from on this stuff as the person who makes many of these decisions as to why, because you do deserve to know. I mean, if I expect you to trust us as an outlet and there are feeds of information that are questionable, I believe it's warranted to. You deserve to know why it is that's there, I guess is the best way to put it. So anyway, that's that. And all that being said, also, I don't know what the deal is with Fox News and Pat Sajak. I was just talking to Sarah about this. Almost
They
every
have an
week.
obsession.
There is like this obsession Fox News has had with Pat Sajak of Wheel of Fortune for a very long time. Almost, it seems like every week there is some story that has clickbait headlines making Pat Sajak out to be some sort of nut job. And this one, 22 hours ago, Wheel of Fortune host Pat Sajak scolded by Vanna White for cruel prank. It's almost weekly, it seems like. I don't know if other outlets do that. The only outlets I ever see that seem to have this obsession with Pat Sajak is Fox News. I have no idea why it is. It's weird. To me, it's weird. Because it's not like he's a polarizing figure or something, for criminy sake. He's Pat Sajak. I mean, he did used to, I think he filled in for Rush Limbaugh when Rush Limbaugh had his TV show.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I believe he did a couple of times. He's a conservative guy politically, but it's not like most people probably wouldn't even know that if you don't follow these things necessarily, but yeah, I don't know what it is. It's to me, it really truly is weird. And I'm not saying that to be insulting. I'm saying that because I can't figure out what the deal is. I've even tried to, and maybe I need to look and see if the articles, if they're all written by the same person and find out, like, did they go to high school together or something? Is there some sort of bad relationship here that's causing these stories to be written? Coming up,
They are not, by the way.
No, they're not? So what a weird thing.
I don't know.
I'd almost try to reach out and ask, but I don't believe any answer I got would be satisfactory. I don't believe they'd be like, you know what, we just really don't like the guy. We think we don't like him. And so collectively we decide, or what are they going to say? We thought it would be funny to start writing and see how long it took for people to wonder what on earth was going on and why we keep writing stories ripping on Pat Sajak or writing headlines that make it look like he did something horrific. And then you read the story and you're like, oh, well, that's nothing. Coming up, couple of things about the two Democrat candidates that already announced their candidacy before Biden did, Marianne Williamson and Robert F. Kennedy. They're learning what it means to run as a Democrat, and that is that the system is so rigged against them. I wonder if this makes them election deniers. Does it? Does this make them a danger to democracy and Russian misinformation spreaders for calling into question our democratic process? That's a good question. I suspect, I'm trying to think, maybe they are. Maybe they are. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. And here's Sarah Myers.
That's me. Well, Avis, the car rental company, has a brand new program called the Long-Term Rental Program. Now, this program was created to bridge the gap between buying a vehicle and leasing a vehicle. Now, one of the best things about the Long-Term Rental Program is that the registration will never be in your name, which will save you thousands in taxes and fees. You will not be locked into one vehicle for years, and you will have the option to try out different makes and models whenever you need to. This is one of the reasons why I actually really like the long-term rental program. Whenever I purchased my vehicle, the program didn't exist yet, and the used car market was like almost non-existent. And I didn't get everything out of a vehicle that I wanted. But now with the long-term rental program, I can. In the summertime, I plan on having a smaller vehicle that gets good gas mileage, but in the winter, I would like to switch to an SUV or maybe even a truck with four-wheel drive capability. So I can kind of have the best of both worlds, and you can too. If you want more information on the long-term rental program, or you just need a vehicle to rent, give Lauren over at Avis Sunshine a call today. And of course, you can find all of that contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he is one of the four. Tiger King, he announced that he's running for the Democratic nomination as well. But those that aren't in prison currently, Joe Biden announcing this morning, interestingly enough, in his release video, did not list an accomplishment. I think we know why that is. You've got Marianne Williamson, who ran last time around, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. noted, quote, "There is no time in history where the people who were censoring speech were the good guys." And he's right. He's absolutely right. Told Breitbart News Sunday host Joel Pollack, "There's no time in history where the people who were censoring speech were the good guys." The reason this is significant to Kennedy is because he has largely been on the receiving end of such censorship, particularly when it comes to COVID and vaccines and so forth. And what we've learned is that the government had infiltrated numerous social media sites and censoring information that, of course, would turn out largely to be scientifically correct, while the disinformation was the information they were promoting. Kennedy explained that in crafting the Bill of Rights, America's founders put the right to free expression in the First Amendment because all other rights depended on it, because the government that has the power to silence its critics has license for any kind of atrocity, and he's correct in that assessment. He went on to say they also understood, just theoretically, that the whole basis for democracy was the free flow of information, adding that democracy's advantage over tyrannical and monarchical systems of government is that through the free flow of information, the best policies can triumph in the marketplace of ideas, noting that we are now in this situation where without free speech, democracy just withers and dies. Free speech is the fertilizer, it's the sunlight, it's the water for democracy. And again, what we're watching is the vast majority of the establishment media celebrating it, cheering it on. Just to give you a sense, this is just a couple of stories in the last 24 hours in the context of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talking about free speech and how those who stifle it are never the good guys. An outspoken street preacher is appealing to the Oklahoma Supreme Court after he was slapped with a 5-year restraining order, threatening him with jail time if he speaks in opposition against LGBTQ advocacy groups. Rich Pinkowski, a pastor who heads up the online organization Warriors for Christ and has protested drag shows for kids nationwide, told Fox News Digital he believes the restraining order is unconstitutional and could herald a legal precedent that could chill the speech of Christians and others. Noting, "I've been preaching against the kind of stuff for years. When it first started in libraries, we've been telling people it's going to get worse if we don't do anything, and that's where we are." Pinkowski was invited by a church in Bartersville, Oklahoma, to preach outside a local Pride event last fall after other local churches failed to speak out against it. Rich Pinkowski is a pastor who heads up the online organization Warriors for Christ. He posted a public photo of the same-sex wedding of the executive board president of the Bartersville chapter of the Oklahoma for Equity, according to the Christian Post. In the post, he referenced Bible verses condemning homosexuality. In a police report filed by an officer with ties to Oklahomans for Equity in Bartersville, the couple said they felt threatened and harassed by his social media posts. The report claimed he made references to bestiality during a sermon at the Pride event, which he denies, but it shouldn't matter. It's called free speech. So here you have an individual, because the protected class had their feelings hurt, is facing potential jail time for speech. Regarding government institutions, the student government at Whitworth University denied a Republican group's request to invite Xi Van Fleet, a survivor of Maoist China, to speak on campus, citing her criticism of woke culture. This is someone who went through it, a victim of it. The student government at Whitworth University, which is a private Christian university in Spokane, Washington, voted 9-4 to reject the Turning Point USA chapter's request to host Van Fleet during a meeting on April 12th, arguing that her positions, represented by her tweets critical of woke culture, could be deemed hurtful and offensive. The context here is supposed to be a university of higher learning where you go to learn about things. And they voted not to learn about what it's like under communism. They voted not to hear from a person who lived through it because it might hurt feelings. A vote of 9-4. That university is failing. For the left and the Democrats that love to pound the podium, claiming that Republicans are trying to ban books, which determining curriculum in school is not banning books, incidentally. They are out there in full force, using whatever means necessary to suppress all speech with which they disagree. And every day, like evil often does, it becomes stronger and stronger, as long as people who don't want to be troubled, people who don't want to get in the way, people who don't want to be attacked, keep their mouths shut. And unfortunately, that's a lot of what we're dealing with in this country today. You know, especially those in the world of journalism, I'll speak locally, it might do you well. It would certainly do well for those you serve to do a little research on Martin Niemöller. He's a Lutheran pastor. I don't have a lot of time, but I've talked about this before. But he isn't as known as his poem, his story, which oftentimes gets recited. When they came for these people, I said nothing, and then when they came for the Jews, I said nothing, and then when they came for me, there was no one left to, so forth. And there are actually a number of variations of it. And the reason for that is because as he would travel around and give speeches, sometimes he would customize it based on the audience. A lot of people think it's about the Holocaust. It's not about the Holocaust. It is about how people like him sat and allowed those things to happen because it wasn't happening to him. And, in fact, at times happening to those that were of political opposition. That's what that was about. He is a Lutheran pastor. He went through a great period of good. He was actually a supporter of the Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazis, Hitler, and then things slowly but surely started to go sour. And some of his concern began when he realized he actually met Hitler with some other pastors and realized that the socialist Nazi government had infiltrated the churches and were spying on them. Kind of like we learned recently, the Biden administration has infiltrated the Catholic churches. It's pretty amazing the parallels between the Socialist German Workers' Party of Germany and the Democrat Party today. But when it was all said and done and he looked back at the horrors and he tried to reconcile, he tried to rationalize how it was that he and others allowed those things to happen. Well, it was because of this or because of that. And he eventually got to the point where he had to accept responsibility. and expected other Christians to do as well, that we just didn't do the right thing. We made excuses. Well, they're political opposition, or they're this. It's not me. Serves them right. Well, their actions have consequences. And that's what that story, that's what that poem was about. It was about other citizens that sat back, or journalists, while some journalists were attacked by the government and they didn't say a damn thing because, well, it's some conservative. It might do well for people locally, news leader, or other outlets to learn a bit about that story. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.